Welcome to Choice Tech. In this video, you are going to learn what is a tuple in Python. Well, this video is going to tell you much more than what is a tuple in Python, literally everything that you can know about tuples. So do not skip this video at all. Already, if you are intrigued about learning tuples in Python, then hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, then hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon, because that way you won't miss out on any of my videos. Let's now deep dive into tuples, for which I'm going to use the terminal in which I'll open the prompt of Python 3. First, we'll talk about what is a tuple in Python. Tuples are immutable sequences that store heterogeneous data or collections of heterogeneous data. Remember, I said heterogeneous, that means diverse in character, or in terms of programming languages, we can say different data types. Remember, tuples are ordered, immutable, and allow duplicate values to be stored. So first, let's know how to construct a tuples. We'll construct an empty tuple first. So let's name that tuple as et. And to construct an empty tuple, all we need to do is give empty brackets. Hit enter, print this empty tuple. There you go, it's empty. Now let's create a tuple with elements. Let's call this tuple as tuple1, followed by an equals to sign. Within brackets, we are going to enter the elements. So I'm going to put some random elements: 23, 45, 90. 45, 12, 45 again. And let's print this tuple1. The point to note here is that this tuple has duplicate values and the order of the elements, insertion order of the elements, is maintained. We can also create tuples using only commas without brackets. So for that, let's create another tuple, tuple2. And let's insert a few elements inside this tuple. With integers, let's insert a string element and a float element as well. Hit enter, there you go, tuple created. Now let's print this tuple. So you can see that we have just created a tuple which has elements of different data types. We'll now create a tuple using the constructor of the tuple class. The constructor takes in an iterable and returns a tuple. If you are passing in a tuple, then it will return a tuple. So let's do some hands-on. We'll first look into a mistake that most programmers do, which is passing individual elements in the constructor. So let's create another tuple t, and using the tuple class instructor, we'll pass 23, 45, 67 again. Let's hit enter. The error says tuple expected at most one argument got 3. We don't have to do it because the tuple constructor expects an iterable. You can pass a string, you can pass a list, you can pass another tuple, but you can't pass individual elements like this, because since we passed these 3 individual elements, it is actually considering them as 3 arguments, and the legitimate number of arguments that we can pass is only 1 because it expects an iterable. So let's see some possible correct inputs while constructing a tuple using the constructor. So let's use the same tuple t followed by an equals to sign. We'll put tuple and let's pass a tuple to it. So within the brackets, there will be another set of brackets which will represent a tuple. So you can see this is a single iterable. Now let's hit enter. There you go. Let's print it out. The tuple has been created with 3 elements. So this is one of the legitimate ways to construct a tuple using the constructor. Now, since I mentioned that we can pass an iterable, it accepts different kinds of iterable. So instead of passing a tuple, let's pass list this time. So we'll use the same tuple then, and within the brackets we'll pass list 1, 2, 3, 4 of 4 elements. Hit enter, print this tuple again. There you go. You can pass a string as well to the constructor. So will be tuple. Let's pass the string as Python. Print it. There you go. It returns a tuple. So you can see that even though you passed a list to the constructor, it returned a tuple. Even though you passed a string to this tuple, it returned a tuple of individual characters. You need to remember this. This is very important. Now we can also construct a nested tuple. So we are going to construct a nested tuple in a different manner this time. So let's first declare a tuple. Let's call this tuple as t again. It's going to have 3 elements, 1, 2, 3. And then let's create another tuple which is going to have 3 string elements. So let it be Joey, Jack, and Green. Okay, these 3 strings are coming to my mind, so that's why I entered them. Now let's create a nested tuple t2, and to create a nested tuple, simply within brackets we'll pass t and t1. Let's print this tuple t2. There you go. This is our nested tuple. So you just learned how to construct a nested tuple. Now let's look into the single element tuple construction. You need to pay more attention here. When you have to create a single element tuple, then how you will do it? You will say Joey. The common strategy that comes in my mind is this. Within brackets, let's say the single element is 9. And there you go. No error, right? Let's do a quick check. Let's print the type of this so-called tuple. There you go. You see the type of this so-called tuple that we have created is integer, which is weird. It is because this t over here is nothing but integer variable now. So how to create a single element tuple then? It's simple. After the element, you need to put a comma. Hit enter, no error. Let's check the type now. There you go. So this time we have indeed created a tuple. And this is the method that you need to keep in mind while constructing a single element tuple. It's simple to access an element of a tuple. We can do it the way we access an array element. So if we want to print the element at index 2, which is 6 here, how we are going to do it? We are going to simply write print, and then with it tuple 1 will pass 2 as the index. There you go, 6 printed. Now we constructed a nested tuple over here, and if we want to access the second tuple in this nested tuple, we can do it like print tuple 1 3, because the nested tuple, that means the tuple inside our main tuple is at index 3. There you go. Now if we want to access the second element of this second tuple, second nested tuple over here, then Python gives us the ability to do that as well. To do that, we'll have to simply write print tuple 1. What's the index of this nested tuple? It's 4. And when we have to access the second element of this nested tuple, therefore we are going to pass the index as 1 in the second square bracket. Hit enter. 5.6 is the second element of this nested tuple. Using the Python slicing technique, we can access a series of elements of a tuple 2. If you want to learn about Python slicing technique, then there is a video I have made on it as well. You can watch it by clicking on the I button. Now, for example, to access elements from index 2 to index 5 in a tuple like this, you can write print tuple 2, and within square brackets, you will write 2:6. Note that we are accessing elements from index 2 to index 5. There you go. The elements are right in front of you. If you simply want to access the first 5 elements of a tuple using the slicing technique, then you can do it this way. Within print, you will write tuple 2, and you'll simply put a colon, after which you will put 5, close the brackets, hit enter. There you go. The first 5 elements of this tuple are here in front of you. Also, you can use negative indexing to access the elements. To access the last element of this tuple, that means this last element, you can write print, and within the brackets you'll write tuple2, then square brackets you'll write simply -1, hit enter. There you go. And to access all elements except the last element, you can write print tuple2 colon -1. There you go. All the elements of this tuple are printed except 9, which is the last element. Let's do one final example of negative indexing, in which we'll print elements of this tuple from 3 to 8. To do that, we have to simply find out the index of this element 3 from the last. So let's find it out. This is 1, this is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Within print, we will write tuple2, and within square brackets, we'll write -7, since we have to print all the elements from 3 to -1, because we don't have to print the last element. There you go. All the elements from 3 to 8 have been printed on the screen. Let's now look into updating the tuples. Tuples are immutable. They cannot be changed. Let's see what I'm talking about. Let's simply try to update the element at index 1, which is now 2, with 7. So for that, we'll write t. Within square brackets, we'll write 1, which is the index. And then the element that we want to assign, we want to update the element at index 1 with is 7. I have got this type error which says tuple object does not support item assignment. So how can we change if we want to update any element of a tuple? One strategy is to convert it to a list. Change the item and reconvert it to tuple. Let's do this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a list, and then using the built-in list function, I'm going to pass tuple to it. That's it. Our tuple has been converted into a list. Now let me update the element at index 1 to 7. There you go. No error. Now let's convert this list back to a tuple. So for that, I'll be making use of this tuple constructor, and I'll be passing this list to it. There you go. Now let's print the tuple and see if the value at index 1 is updated or not. It has been updated. So this is one method using which you can update any element in a tuple. Now if you want to add any element to a tuple, how can you do it? For that, you can create a new tuple. So let's say if I want to add elements 5, 6 and 7 to this already existing tuple. So I'm going to create a new tuple for that. I'll name it T2, and it's going to contain elements 5, 6 and 7. To add this tuple or these elements to this already existing tuple T, what we are going to do, we'll write T plus then n equals to sign T2. That's it. Let's print T, our first tuple. There you go. 5, 6 and 7 have been added to our main first tuple. So this is also one way how you can override the immutable nature of a tuple. Let's now focus on deleting a tuple. Deleting a tuple is easy, and we can delete a tuple using the del keyword. So let's delete this tuple T only. So for that, I'm going to simply write del, after which I'm going to write T. That's it. Tuple deleted. Let's try to access it and check if it has really been deleted. There you go. It says nothing like T exists. Now let's focus on how to create a tuple by multiplication. If you want to create a tuple which has one element present like 3 or 4 times, then it is simple to do it in Python. So let's say we want to create a tuple T followed by n equals to sign. We want this tuple to contain an element, a string, peach pie. But our need is like we want this peach pie to be present exactly 3 times in this tuple. How can we create it? Using minimal effort. So for that, you are going to create a singleton tuple like this, peach pie. and after the closing bracket you will write star 3. Let's print this tuple. There you go. Peach pie is present exactly 3 times in this tuple. Now let's see how we can access or print elements of a tuple using loops. So let's create a tuple. We'll call it T1 and it's going to contain elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. To print all its elements, simply we are going to write for I in T1 colon. After giving an indentation, we'll simply write print I. Hit again, there you go, all elements of this tuple have been printed. Now if you want to access elements of this tuple index style, then we can do that as well. So for that we'll write for I in and we'll use the range function, within which we are going to use the length function to find the length of this tuple. We'll put a colon and after giving an indentation we'll write print, but this time we will write T1 and within the square brackets we'll pass I. Remember, this is index style. Oh, let me give the correct bracket over here. I hit enter. There you go. All elements have been printed using index style. Now there are certain useful tuple methods that you must know about. The first method is the count method. This counts the occurrences of a particular element in a tuple. So if this is my tuple and I want to count the occurrences of 1 within this tuple, then we can do it using print t.count, within which we are going to pass the element of which we are interested in finding the occurrences of. I hit enter. There you go. 1 is present 4 times within this tuple. The second method that you should know about is the index method. The index method gives you the index of the first occurrence of an element in a tuple. So if I want to find the index of 4, then we can write print t.index, within which we'll pass 4. We hit enter and the index at which 4 is present is 3. Also note that if an element is not present, then index method will raise an exception. So let's test this out as well. I'll write t.index. Within its brackets, I'm going to write 10 because it is not present within the tuple. I hit enter. There you go. It throws an error, tuple.index x not in tuple. Let's now talk about packing and unpacking of tuples. This is a very important topic in tuples, which can be your next interview question as well. So when we create a tuple like this, we are basically packing elements inside it, or we are simply packing a tuple. But do you know that these elements can be unpacked into variables? Let's see how we can do that. I'm going to write 5 variables now separated by commas. So it will be a, comma b, comma c, comma d, comma e. After n equals to sign, I'll write t. There you go. I have just now unpacked this tuple t into 5 variables. Let's print them and check. There you go. A contains 1, which is actually the first element of our tuple. B should contain 2. C should contain 3. D should contain 4. And E should contain 5. Now, if you want to unpack a tuple, you will have to make sure that the number of variables on the left hand side must match the number of elements in the tuple. If you don't know the number of variables, then you can use the star symbol in front of a variable and the rest of the elements of the tuple will be stored as a list inside that variable. Let's see practically what I'm trying to say. So if you know that there are only 2 variables in which you have to unpack, so let them be A and B, and after that you can write something like star C. After t equals to sign, write t or your tuple. Hit enter. So A is going to contain 1, B will contain 2, but C over here will be a list that will contain 3, 4 and 5. One interesting case is, what if I place this star symbol in front of the first variable? Let's see the behavior. So what I'm going to do, I'll write star a, b, comma, c. After the equals to sign, I'll write the tuple t. Let's check what went into a. All right, so a contains a list which has the first 3 elements. Look at the magic over here. Python automatically adjusted according to the variables present on the left hand side. Now, as per this behavior, b should contain 4 and c should contain 5. There you go. This is what packing and unpacking of a tuple is in Python. Well, this is all that you should know about a tuple in Python. If you have made it here, then you already know more than 90% of the folks. Do let me know in case of any doubts in the comment section. Do not forget to hit the like button and share this video with your friends and family. I look forward to helping you with Python programming, and only for this video. Goodbye and take very good care of yourself.